there, welcome back to another video. This time around, it is my review of the 1992 crime thriller Juice. Now, before I get around to sharing my thoughts on this film, I want to give a special shout out to Shine for requesting this review. And if there's another film, TV show, or topic that you'd like to see me discuss in the future, feel free to donate to either my PayPal or to my Patreon. The link to both is in the video description down below, and I will try to get to your request as soon as I possibly can. Now, Juice is one of those films that when it came out, it was a modest hit financially, made 20 million on a $5 million budget. It also got some good reviews, but it was more of a hit on home video. And that's why it's become such a well-known and well-loved classic of its genre over the years. And after seeing it for the first time, I can definitely say that it was worth the hype and then some. I thought this was a damn good movie. It's directed by Ernest Dickerson, who, in my opinion, is just a really unique and cool filmmaker. He has a very distinct style, and that is definitely apparent in his directorial debut in Juice. And I definitely don't think this is a film that would be as good as it is without Ernest Dickerson. Because Ernest Dickerson, his whole approach to this film visually and everything that he brings to it is just so unique and fresh. And it just adds so much extra attitude and energy to the film as a whole. The way that he works with his shots in terms of how he frames them, the way that he utilizes the pans and the zooms and the different sort of angles involving the camera, or the way that he uh, uses, different sort of filmmaking techniques. It's all very kinetic. It's all very uh, interesting. Like, it's a very interesting film to watch because of the way that Dickerson shoots these scenes, like the way that he blocks them, the way that he works with light and shadow in particular, and the way that he matches the visual style and energy with the emotion of a given scene. For instance, when things start to go completely sideways, the way that Dickerson directs the film changes. And it just makes for a really involving and consistently intriguing film from a visual perspective. And it's very daring, too. So you have this daring and dynamic direction by Ernest Dickerson, which is really impressive considering that it's his first film. And it's just one of many things about this movie that just make it so good. Now, Juice is written by Ernest Dickerson and Gerard Brown. And I think this is a great script. I think it's a good example as well of how you can take a very straightforward, simple story about a group of troubled teens and their different day-to-day scenarios and situations that they involve themselves in, and the choices that they make, and how going down the wrong path can be very detrimental to their lives and to their future, but with a twist. And the twist is that you have this story initially that's about these group of friends who dub themselves the Wrecking Crew. These four teenagers who are growing up in Harlem. Uh, Q, Bishop, Raheem, and Steele. And they are, just trying to make ends meet. They're doing different stuff on the side, hustling to make some extra dough. They're stealing some records from the record shop. They're definitely troubled teens. But on the surface level, they don't seem to be like they're, hardened criminals or anything. But, in Harlem, in their neighborhood, there's these gangs and there's these other people who are definitely hardened criminals, to say the least. And so they have this pressure to be more like the other gangs. And this leads to one of the members of the crew and Bishop, who is already unstable because he is the focus of a continual harassment by one of the local gangs who just continually harass the guy. They harass him, they torment him, they basically bully him everywhere he goes. And so he's always on edge and he's already uh, pretty much about to break. And once he gets a gun and he starts to have these fantasies and these ideas of him being the one that's running the streets and he's the one that's gonna get the respect and the power and the money. It leads to this crew becoming wrecked, this crew of friends being completely wrecked from the inside by Bishop, who they, these guys, they consider him to be a brother because he's that close with them. But he just drifts further and further apart from them and further apart from their ideals. And it leads to a second half of the film that is genuinely harrowing and genuinely horrifying at points because of the way that Bishop is written. He's an intimidating presence. Like, this is a character who's manipulative, who's psychotic, who is genuinely unpredictable, and you don't know what he's going to do next. I mean, this is a guy who's so crazy that when Q tells him to his face that he's crazy later on in the movie, he's like, "Yeah, I am crazy, and I don't give a fuck." Like, you're like, "Oh, goddamn!" Like, he's the kind of guy that you do not want to mess with because you just don't know what he's gonna do. Like, he could just pull a gun up on you and just blow your brains out because he just doesn't like the way that you're looking at him. He's that kind of guy. Like, he's completely not just off the reservation, he's off the entire planet. And I just like how this script handles things initially to get you well versed and situated when it comes to these characters and their motivations and the dynamic with each other and the different sort of pressures and the different sort of stresses that they deal with, setting up somebody like Q and and showing his passion and DJing and showing how that it can actually lead him to a path that is actually good. It's a good path. It's a path that doesn't lead to joining a gang. It doesn't lead to him potentially dying in a gang war. Like, it doesn't lead to him being sent to prison. Like, it's an actual legit path for him to take to succeed in life. And it's just another added bit of tension that's thrown into the mix because now there's stakes. Because now, okay, his friend is completely starting to lose it. His screws are starting to come loose, and he's coming up with this plan to go rob a store after he does his set at the DJ competition. And of course, Q was like, I don't want to do this, man. But, we're brothers, we ride or die together, so let's do it. And so this script is also a great example of peer pressure and how genuinely damaging that can be because of the crew deciding to go along with this together. They are now accomplices in not just a robbery, but in a murder because Bishop, because he's already starting to lose his grip on reality, thinks that he saw the shop owner pull a gun out, but he didn't do anything, but he thinks he saw it, so he shoots the guy. And so now they got a murder rap they have to deal with, and that leads to a lot of understandable strife and contentiousness between the crew, between the friends, while they're hiding out from the police after the robbery. And then it leads to Raheem, who is a longtime friend, member of the crew, and he sees that Bishop is starting to slip, and he's got a gun, and he's like, I got to get this gun away from him because he's going to hurt somebody. He's going to hurt more people. And so Raheem tries to get the gun away from his friend, and then he gets shot by Bishop. But instead of like feeling remorse, instead of feeling like, oh man, I fucked up, this is out of control, I got to stop this, Bishop just becomes more and more unglued. He becomes more and more paranoid. He becomes more and more crazy and manipulative. He starts to take advantage of his friends, intimidate them, and then you find out the true nature of this character, because there's even a line of dialogue where he says, "I don't give a fuck about any of you." Like, I never. It's almost like he never did. Like he never really was true friends with this group of people. With these teenagers who we like to call the wrecking crew. And when he has the opportunity to get this power and respect in the community, which he does so with violence, it then becomes something that he can't get enough of. He becomes addicted to the bloodshed to the point he's shooting people in cold blood in the middle of the day. He's shooting his rival multiple times. He's intimidating Steele to the point where he's breaking down and crying in front of him. He's going after Q and stalking him around. He's following him to the high school. He's going as far as to spread these rumors about Q that he's the one that's lost his mind and he's the one that's killing everybody. He's the one that's killed the shopkeeper. He's the one that killed Raheem. He's the one that shot Steele. Because at some point Bishop actually goes in and shoots Steele. Because his whole plan is to kill all of the crew. And he'll be the last one standing. There'll be no more witnesses. And like Bishop is written in a way where he's so cold that he shows up to Raheem's funeral. Like the whole funeral wake, party, with all of the family members, and he's lying to the mother of Raheem and lying to her face. Like he's just lying right to her face and lying to Raheem's sister. He's glaring and staring daggers at Q because Q is like looking at him like, what the hell are you doing, man? Like you're just showing up here and you're acting like you're acting like you're a fucking saint and you shot Raheem. And so the script is just so good when it comes to providing just a very great sense of tension and stakes, and it really makes you look at this whole situation that goes completely awry and see the tragedy in it, but also see the terror because of the way that Bishop is written. He's manipulative. He's unpredictable. He is an absolute psycho. And so when it gets to the point where Q has to take out Bishop himself in order to survive, it becomes something that is genuinely intense and creates some really palpable moments of nail-biting tension that culminate in a pretty strong climax where Q even goes as far to get a gun to protect himself, But then after he almost shoots a homeless guy and he sees how it made him react, he throws the gun away, which I thought that was a nice touch. Where Q realizes that's not who I am. If I'm going to take care of this, I'm going to take care of it my way. I'm not taking care of it with a gun. And so that in itself also adds another layer of tension because of the fact that, oh shit, he's got to go up against this unpredictable psycho friend of his without a gun. Good luck with that. And so he goes and confronts Bishop. Bishop shoots at him a few times, hits him in the arm, hits Q in the arm, and then he goes and hides in a house party. But Bishop follows him there, and then they ultimately start fighting on top of the roof of the house party, which is it's more of like an apartment, but you get what I mean. So they're fighting on the roof. They're getting into fisticuffs. They're punching each other. They're hitting each other with blunt instruments, and then it gets to the point where Q does get the upper hand and sends Bishop off the edge of the building. And since Bishop is still his friend, he tries to save him, but he can't hold on, can't keep his grip, and Bishop falls to his death. And I like the ending shot of the movie that shows the partygoers and they saw everything that unfolded. And they're all like, "Hey Q man, you're the one that's got the juice now." And Q's like, he's just shaking his head. I don't know if he shook his head or not, but it's just the attitude that the actor who played Q, Omar Epps, brought to that scene. It's like that's not something that he wants. Like that's like one of the last things on his mind right now, because he just had to watch his friend die. He had to watch a bunch of his friends die at the hands of his own brother. A man he considered to be a brother, or at least as close as a brother. It's just the kind of thing that can happen when you bring guns into a situation. Um, and also when somebody succumbs to the pressure of society or of their particular part of society. I got to have power, I got to have respect. Otherwise I ain't shit. A lot of people, I don't think they probably can, at least, I can't necessarily relate to that because there's some white boy in the suburbs. But if you live in that environment, you live in that neighborhood, or you deal with that kind of pressure all the time, it's understandable that that can definitely eat away at you, and that's something that you think about because you see friends of yours, you see people that people that you're close with, they or you see enemies, you see people that you hate and you despise who treat you like shit, and you're like, why can't I have what they have? And so you start to think about ways that you can get what they have. And that leads you down the wrong path. There's more to life than getting the juice. So I just think it's a great script with not only a good, moral to it, but it's just so well done in terms of how it establishes the wrecking crew, establishes these characters and their dynamic with one another. And it does a good job making you like these characters, despite the fact that, they're definitely a bunch of troublemakers. And you have these other side characters that are also established, like Trip, that is also interesting and adds some extra stuff to things. And you have the whole DJ stuff, which is a nice extra added a bit of intrigue that's thrown in there and makes Q into a more engaging or interesting character. And then you have the twist. You have the moment when things just completely flip, and now it's no longer a story about these four teenagers and their friendship with one another. Now it's a story about survival, and I really like that. I think it's a really unique uh, way to tell this particular tale. I think it's got a great cast too. I mean, the cast is fantastic. I think all of these actors do some really good work in this. Omar Epps, I think this is his best role. Like, I didn't even know he could act this well. I'm used to see him in like a few films here and there and side roles, like being Wesley Snipes' replacement in Major League Two and just being kind of adequate. But here, he was excellent. He was really good as Q. Like he did a great job showing the side of Q where, he's inquisitive, he's trying to do the right thing. He's got different morals than some of the other members of his crew, and he's trying to stand up for them, but he's also being a little bit intimidated by other people. And so there's a meekness that he provides, but not to a point where he seems like he's a total wimp. But you see why he's intimidated and why he goes along with things, even when he doesn't want to. And so then when he ultimately, by the end of the film, grows a pair, and actually stands up for himself and for his morals and for what he believes in, it's rather cathartic. And I think Epps was also really believable when it comes to the moments when he needed to be hard, when he needed to be tough. And I felt that he was also believable in the role as a DJ. It actually seemed like it's something he actually knew how to do. Like, I probably would think that Omar Epps isn't the one that's doing all that stuff. I'm not sure though, but he did a good job, acting the part. And when it comes to showing like emotion, when it comes to not just anger, but also fear and sadness, I felt he nailed all of those emotions very well. But I mean, the biggest standout of the cast though has to be Tupac as Bishop. Um, man, I miss Tupac. It really is a shame that he's gone, and it's not just because he's a great musician, but out of all of the rappers turned actors, like he was actually a good actor. Like this is a prime example of that. His performance as Bishop is really good. Like, he's not the most intimidating guy stature-wise, but he more than makes up for it when it comes to his approach to this character and just showing his coldness and his calculating nature and just how genuinely nuts this guy is. Like, you could tell that Tupac took it seriously. He wasn't overdoing it. This is something that easily could have been a little corny, to be honest. If you have like an actor who's not that experienced, who's trying to be hard, trying to be intimidating. But Tupac didn't take that approach. He took it seriously, and there's a lot of moments where the performance is like simmering. It's not like full on boil all the time. Like, it's simmering. And then when there's moments when he needs to really turn up the heat, he turns up the heat and then some. So yeah, I thought it was just a terrific performance by Tupac as Bishop. He was downright terrifying in this. Like, you could have changed some things up, and this could have been like a different take on Cape Fear in the hood. A hood version of Cape Fear. Like, you really could have done that because Tupac was that good and that intimidating and that scary at points as Bishop. I mean, the guy literally admitted that he's crazy and he doesn't give a fuck. It doesn't get more intimidating than that. And I felt that Khalil Kain was also good as Raheem. He wasn't in it as much as Omar Epps and Tupac, but he still did a good job in his role that he was asked to do. Had some nice charm, personality that he brought to the role. I thought he had some good chemistry with Omar and Tupac and Jermaine. Speaking of Jermaine, I thought he was good too as Steel. He was actually probably the funniest out of the group. Had the best comedic timing. Um, but he was also a character that showed a lot of vulnerability. and I think that actor did a really good job showcasing that. How vulnerable his character is, how he can be broken down to tears, how he's just forced and intimidated to do all this sort of stuff and do these illegal things and do this stuff with Bishop because he's being pushed around and he's physically and emotionally and mentally intimidated and uh, and manipulated as a result. And so the way that he showcases that just makes you really feel for his character because it seems like there's still a little bit of innocence there because I believe he's like the youngest member of the group. So you're looking at him and you're like, he's just a kid. Like, just leave him alone, you know? Just let him do what he wants to do. Listen to his music, crack jokes. Like, what's your problem? But I do think that it was a definitely a good casting choice to because Jermaine just represented those qualities of that character very well. The supporting cast is good too, like Cindy Herron as Yolanda, Vincent Maresca as Radams, Samuel L. Jackson as Trip. He really is in everything. I was like, oh my god, it's Samuel L. Jackson. He really is in every movie. um, Queen Latifah, her small role as the MC. Um, Even some other stuff like Michael Badaluccio as Detective Kelly. It's not a very big role, but I think the two detectives that you saw in the movie that were interrogating the crew at one point. Uh, those actors did a really good job with honestly pretty one note roles, but they did a good job showing how genuinely intimidating and manipulative and just awful some cops can be when it comes to the interrogation process, especially with minorities or people who have had a track record of criminal activities. They're not there to help you. They want to railroad your ass. They want to find a reason to pin the crime on you. And I like that, these actors, they didn't really shy away from that. They're like, yeah, these detectives are just a bunch of jerks, and we're just going to play it that way. And we're not going to, have any nuance or anything there. And you have some cameos from other uh, artists, other people who are part of the rap community around the time in the 90s. You have Flex, Dr. Dre, Fab Five Freddy, Donald Faison, who's not really necessarily part of the rap community, but he's there as a student. You got Treach, EPMD, who plays some bar patrons, Orange Juice Jones, who plays Snappy Nappy Dugout, because apparently that's actually a real that's the real name of the guy, I guess. That was a funny line of dialogue too. That's one aspect too of the script I didn't give enough credit for is that there are some genuinely humorous moments in it. And, it's got some pretty good cinematography as well by Larry Banks. Um, I think it's got some good editing as well by Sam Pollard and Berlinda Torres. The music by Hank Shockley and the Bomb Squad. The instrumentals, when they are there, they're fitting when it comes to the tone of the film, the certain emotion they're trying to get out of a given scene. But Juice, its sound is primarily its soundtrack, and it's a soundtrack chock full of bangers, man. It's got a great soundtrack. I mean, you got Naughty by Nature, you got Eric B. and Rakim, who did the song Juice, the opening credits. You've got Big Daddy Kane, um, Cypress Hill, and there's some other songs that are in the film but weren't in the soundtrack. Word Up by Cameo, Pump Me Up by Trouble Funk, um, How I Could Just Kill a Man by Cypress Hill. So yeah, it's a really good soundtrack. Great album. And definitely adds a lot to this movie. And it also helps that the film's, like, only 95 minutes, like, it's not long at all, like, it's an hour and 20 some minutes without the end credits, so it's paced very tightly, and so it never really has a moment where it gets too dull, especially once things start to completely go sideways, like, the film then becomes really relentless when it comes to its pacing. So, yeah, I thought this was a great film, and I would definitely recommend it if you haven't checked it out yet for whatever reason. But anyway, thanks for watching my review of Juice, and until next time, I'll see you later. See ya.